Hello, and welcome to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and today we will be simplifying simple entry. I'm going to show you how to enter notes and rests in simple entry just using a mouse if you have an extended keyboard that has a number pad on it, all right? Now, when you're using a computer keyboard with a number pad, we're going to want to make sure that the keyboard shortcuts are set appropriately. So when you're in the simple entry tool, find the simple menu, choose simple entry options. Towards the bottom, find edit keyboard shortcuts, and again towards the bottom, this first option here where it says select, just make sure that default shortcut table is selected. There's a laptop option, but we want the default shortcut table, which will correspond to using the number pad, and then click OK. And that will stay set that way no matter what file you have open until you change it, all right? It is a program option, not a document option, in other words. So to enter notes with the mouse, it's fairly simple. Go down to the simple entry palette, which opens up when you open the simple entry tool, and choose a rhythm. So we choose a quarter note, and then we can just go into the staff and simply click in the measure where we want the notes to go, and they will appear. And if we want a different rhythm, just go down here and choose a different rhythm, and we can go about it that way. Now this is going to be a little bit slow, having to go back and forth all the time, but we don't need to go back to choose the rhythm all the time. This is what the number pad is for, and all of the number pad rhythms are located right here. I've embedded this in the file. This is from the Finale Quick Reference card, which you can go find. And so the 4 corresponds to a eighth, 5 to a quarter, 6 for a half, etc. You can sort of see what those all are, all right? So we don't have to go down here. We can just press 4 to get an eighth note, 5 to get a quarter note, and switch back and forth like that. All right, easy enough. And the one thing that's weird about this is that the 0 doesn't actually work for 128th notes. In order to get a 128th note with the mouse, we have to do Command Option Shift 0 from the number row. That's the main part of the computer keyboard. Command Option Shift 0 from the number row, and then we'll get the 128th notes. All right. Easy enough. If we want to add intervals to notes that we've entered, so let's actually enter a new quarter note here. In order to add an interval to it, it's easy. Just hover over into a new spot, and you can enter notes that way, below if you want to. Or there's another way. Once you enter the note and it's highlighted, you'll see that every time you enter a note, it'll be highlighted like that. You can use the numbers in the number row. So this is above the main part of the keyboard, and those numbers will correspond to intervals above that note. So if I press 3, it will put a third above it. Now that new note is highlighted, if I press 3 again, I'll get a third above that. All right, and you continue on like that. You can also do intervals below, and that's with the Shift key. So Shift 3 will give me a third below and a third below that, etc. Now this works pretty well except for one interval, which is the 9th. If you want a 9th above this note, you will have to press, Command Shift 9. That's it, right? Interestingly, I should say, Shift 9 alone will give you the 9th below. So there's just a little funky little thing about those commands there. It's Command Shift 9 for an interval above and just Shift 9 for an interval below, all right? There's also one other way. If you have a note there, you can use the letters on the keyboard, A through G, and if you use a shift with those letters, you can enter that particular note. So if I do Shift F, I'll get an F. If I do Shift E, I'll get an E, etc., right? Shift C will give me a C. All right, so that's another way to add intervals. Rests. So there's a couple ways we can do this. This is the simple note palette, but there is a simple rest palette, which by default doesn't show up, but you can pull it up in the Windows menu. Somewhere about halfway, you'll see the simple entry palette is checked, but if you check simple entry rest palette, now you'll get the simple entry rest palette. And incidentally, there is a way to make that appear automatically. Finale is not set up this way to begin with, but I'm just going to show you. If you go into Finale Preferences here, and find palettes and backgrounds all the way in the bottom, the Show Rest Palette in Simple Entry. If you check that, now anytime you go in and out of Simple Entry, that Rest Palette will also appear, all right? Probably handy to have that. It's not there. That option is not checked by default. So, and again, just to enter rest, we can just simply choose a rest value from the rest palette and do it that way. Or to get a rest value from the keyboard, we can do command and a number in the number pad that corresponds to the rhythm that you want. So if I want a quarter rhythm, I would do, or a quarter rest, I'd do command 5 will give me a quarter rest, right? And obviously plain 5 will get me back to the quarter note. Command 5 will get me a quarter rest, etc. Okay? And there's one final way. I'm going to just delete some of these bars because I'm running out of room here. There's one final way to enter a rest. If you're entering notes, you can simply just enter a note, and if you press the R key, it will turn it into a rest. So you don't even have to go into that rest palette at all if you just want to do it that way. Just hit R to get a rest, okay? To delete notes and rest, it's fairly simple. You'll notice that whenever you enter something, it gets highlighted. So if you just press delete, it will delete it and go back to the next one. And you can just keep deleting as far as you need to. All right, simple enough. To enter dotted notes, here's how we do it. We'd enter the note and then press the period. And this will work in either the main part of the keyboard or the period in the number pad section too. So we can do it that way. So I've pressed 5, and I can press period in the number pad to get that dot. All right. We can also do something called a sticky dot, and I'll call it sticky, meaning that you'll get dotted rhythms continuously. So you notice that when I select a rhythm in the simple entry palette, you notice that it's highlighted. So if I were to press Shift period, you notice that the dot gets highlighted as well, right? So what this means is that, and you'll see my cursor is now a dotted quarter note. This is why I have that 6/8 over here. This is handy in compound meters, because then you can just enter strings of dotted quarter notes without having to do, enter the note, press period, enter the note, press period, right? So that would be a sticky dot. And to unstick it, just again press Shift period. And again, it's either period in the main keyboard, the main part of the keyboard, or in the number pad part, all right? So that is dotted notes. Ties, fairly easy. Just let's say we're going to enter a half note here. Once the note is entered, press T, and it will give you a tie. And T again will toggle it on and off. And then just enter a new rhythm, and you're good to go. Alternatively, if you don't like T, you can use the slash key in the number pad. That will also give you a tie, and we'll toggle it on and off. And you can do a tie that way as well. And if for some reason you forgot the tie and you started entering the next note, you can tie backwards from the note that's selected with, I think it's, Shift T, that's right. And that will tie it backwards, and again, toggle it on and off. Or Command slash in the number pad. So Shift T or Command slash to tie backwards. And we can even do a sticky tie if we need to. This could be handy if you've got a long slew of tied whole notes, for example. So let's just choose a whole note. To get a sticky tie, there's two options. It's Command Shift T or Option slash above the number pad. So let's do Command Shift T. And you'll see my cursor now has that little tie indication floating around with the note. So we'll just enter that E, and you'll get the tie automatically. Enter another one, tie automatically. And again, Command Shift T will toggle it off. So now we just do a regular whole. And the other option was Option slash above the number pad. Will give us that that tie. And again, you'll notice that I have the whole note selected, but now the tie is also selected here, right? And we can do that as well. All right, and then Option slash, we'll get that going. And incidentally, if you have some notes and you forgot to tie it, if you do a double click, if you do Option double click slash, for example, it will give you the tie tool basically without the rhythm, right? So now I've got the tie tool selected, and if I select a note, it will just tie it, right? Okay, and then to get back to rhythms, you do have to go back to the number pad and press a note. And again, the tie is still sticky there, so again, Option Shift or Option Slash to get it undone, okay? So that is sticky ties. Let's talk about accidentals. So let's enter some notes here. In order to get an accidental, enter a note, it's highlighted, and then if we use the equals key or the plus key in the main part of the keyboard, you'll get a sharp. This is like above where to the right of where the numbers are in the number row. Minus will give you a flat, and we'll take it back to natural. Shift equals will give you a double sharp. Shift minus will give you a double flat. All right, so that's equal, minus, N, shift equals, and minus for sharp, flat, natural, double sharp, double flat. Alternatively, if we enter a note, actually, let's enter that note. And in the number pad part of the keyboard, if you use the plus or minus key, it will raise the accidentals or lower the accidentals, right? So from B, plus will give you B sharp. Plus again will give you B double sharp, and actually you can keep going in this manner up to, I think that's, 7 sharps. And again, just keep pressing minus to get it back all the way down to 7 flats, I guess. All right, if you need something like that, that's how you would do that. You can do sticky accidentals as well, only with sharps and flats though. So if we were to choose Option equals, again, I'm still in the main part of the keyboard. So Option equals, and you'll see that the cursor now has a sharp before it. And then we can enter sharps all day long. Of course, it won't put the sharp in the C because it's in the key signature, right? And Option minus will give us flats until we no longer need that. And just like the tie, if we double click, if we do Option double click equals, the rhythmic value goes away, and we're just left with the sharp highlighted, and then we can go in and just click. Well, it's not going to give me a sharp on the C because it's already sharp, but it will on the A, all right, on the D. Same thing with flat, Option double click minus, and now we can put flats on any notes that we need to, all right. So that's how that would work. And again, if you need to get back to entering notes, you got to enter a rhythm and then unstickify that sharp or flat. All right, let me just get rid of some of this. So we talked about accidentals. How about grace notes? This is fairly easy too. If we enter a note, after we enter a note, all we need to do is Option G. We'll turn it into a grace note. All right, Option G, turn it into a grace note. And there are sticky grace notes as well if you want, and that would be Command G. And you'll see the grace note little notification to the right of the cursor there. And from there, you can just enter grace notes until you're done, and then Command G will turn it off. Easy enough. All right, so that's Option G and Command G for sticky grace notes. And finally, tuplets. So if we want a tuplet, the thing to do is enter the note first of the tuplet that we want. So let's say we want an 8th note tuplet. So enter an 8th note, and then press 9. And this can be from the number pad or the number row. It doesn't matter. So press 9, and it will create the triplet for you. And then you just enter the rest of the notes, right? Again, 9. We'll enter it. And it does matter which rhythm you enter first. So if I were to choose quarter note first and enter a quarter note and then press 9, I would get quarter note triplets, all right? You can do sticky triplets if you do Command 9. So let's say we're going to enter the note and press Command 9. Oops, that has to happen before. So press Command 9. You've got your triplet highlighted here, which means you're entering sticky triplets. And then there you go. And from here, I think if you change the rhythm, you'll start getting quarter note triplets. Yeah, you got to click in the right spot, all right? And again, Command 9 will unstickify it. All right, so if you want a tuplet that's not a triplet, we can do that too. Let's say we want, how about 5/16 in the space of 4. So again, choose the 16th rhythm first, enter it. Instead of 9, press Option 9, and again, it doesn't matter which 9 on the keyboard. and you'll get the simple entry tuplet definition box, and from here we're going to define what the tuplet is. So in this case we want 5, and use current just means that it's using the current rhythmic value that you just entered, right? So 5/16 in the space of 4/16, and hit OK, and it just created that 5 tuplet for me. And then you can enter your notes. All right. There was another option that you might have noticed in that box. So if I press option 9 again, you'll see that, actually, yeah, you'll see that there's an option here called Save as Default Simple Entry Tuplet Definition. So if I check this, let's define it first. Let's say we're going to say 5 in the space of 4. If I were to check this now, all right, first of all, it's going to create the tuplet like I want it to. But then the next time I press the 9 key without the option, it will create that 5 tuplet, right? So that default tuplet is basically what happens when you press 9. And just be aware that that default tuplet will remain that way if you close this file and open another file. If you close Finale and open Finale a week later, that default tuplet will now be a 5 tuplet. So you just got to be careful about using that function, right? And one more thing I wanted to point out about this. So let's say there's a common thing we do with swing rhythms sometimes where we'll enter quarter note, eighth triplet kind of type of thing. Well, when you do that, you do have to make sure that Finale defines the tuplet correctly, right? So because if we were to enter a quarter note, well, I can't use a 9 now because I've redefined the definition, the automatic definition, right? So we've got to go back here, choose 3 in the space of 2, and let's save that back as our default because that's the default, right? So if I were to create a triplet starting with the quarter note, it's going to create a quarter note triplet, but that's not what we want, right? So there's a way to do that. If we enter the quarter note and press option 9 to bring up this definition, what we can do is use 3. If we don't use current, we can redefine that tuplet. So if we use 3 eighth notes in the space of 2 eighth notes, this will force Finale to define that tuplet as 3 eighth notes versus 2 eighth notes, not as the way it would normally, which would be 3 quarter notes, right? So we click OK, and now you'll see that it correctly defined that swing rhythm for you. All right, so again, we can do the same thing. Option 9, just make sure that eighths are selected, and actually if we choose to save as default, then we can just go back and forth like this with 9 without going through that tool, right? So, oops, quarter note, 9, eighth note, right? Quarter note, 9, eighth note, and there you have it. All right, so that's tuplets. So we've talked about everything in entering notes and rests in this manner. We've got dotted ties, accidentals, grace notes, and tuplets, and notes and rest, obviously. So so that's the basic gist of it. Hopefully this gets you a good start, and come back and we'll look at some other ways to enter notes in simple entry. All right, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.